So, how do we prepare our kids for an AI future? If you have kids, have you found yourself wondering what kind of world they're going to inherit, especially in the job market? I know I have. My oldest son goes to college next year. He just graduated. I'm so proud of him. But lately, I've been also thinking a lot about what kind of future he's stepping into. Should I be insisting that he even go to college? I'm not always sure. Because when I graduated, the path seemed fairly straightforward. Work hard, get a degree, you're going to get a job, and build a career. Today, I'm not sure those things are exactly that simple anymore. Because AI is changing things so quickly. Nobody really even knows exactly where this all goes. But I think it's forcing parents to ask really important questions like, how do we prepare our kids for a future we are not even sure about? We don't clearly see yet. And that's what I've been thinking about lately. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So hello friends, and welcome to Life in Abundance. This is where we talk about faith, finances, personal growth, and creating a life in abundance. So what I've been thinking about as my son starts making college plans, I've noticed something a little different in my thinking. The conversations around AI tend to fall into a lot of kind of two extremes. On one side, people act like nothing is changing, everything will be fine, but most of us pretty much doubt that. But there are a lot of people going, AI is just going to take all the jobs and the kids have no future and this is going to be horrible. And I don't really think either one of those is going to be what happens. What I do think is that technology is changing quickly. And if we're paying attention, it should probably cause us to think carefully about how we're preparing our children for that different future. Because if nobody can clearly tell us what the job market even is going to look like in 10 years from now, then how do we know how to prepare our children? What career should we point them to? Because I know as a parent, I'm feeling like I want them to get great jobs. That's how I picked my career. I did not pick what I wanted. I picked something that I wouldn't be miserable doing, that I knew had a future. So, what do I tell my kids? We've had a few conversations about it. So that got me thinking, what skills would I know my child benefit from no matter what happens with AI? Kind of like, what skills will ultimately help him if I don't know what the job market does, if I don't know how quickly technology is going to change? Because from what I understand, entire industries could change. But certainly, certain qualities are going to be valuable regardless what kind of career they go to. So one thing I'm not teaching my children is fear. I'm not teaching them that robots are going to take over, and I'm not teaching them that they are destined to be an iRobot slave. But honestly, I was concerned because I've heard even my own kids. So I've got 3 boys who are now in high school, or so the oldest one now graduated. And we've had conversations, and and as we spoke about, like, over the last few years, and I asked them, oh, what are you interested in? What do you want to go to college to learn? They straight up, their answer totally blew me away, and I was appalled at what they said about what they believed about their future. Because they basically said, Mom, it doesn't matter what I pick because the AI is going to take over my job. And these are kids that haven't even gone to college yet. These are not people who are facing the job market. These are kids who have not even yet been prepared. For them to be that pessimistic, thinking that, their opportunities are already over and they hadn't even started playing the game yet, I was appalled. that that's the stance they're taking. And there were 3 of them talking to me about it, and all 3 of them said the same thing. So I know that every generation faces uncertainty. The details change. The uncertainty itself isn't anything new, right? When our grandparents were young, they faced uncertainty. Was world war gonna kill everybody? And then after that, it was like the industrial age. And I'm not saying everything worked out, but I'm going to say that looking around, things probably worked out a little bit better, or a lot better than most people were thinking at the time, even though they faced a lot of uncertainty. So the future had always been uncertainty. The future has always been uncertain. The question is, how do we respond to it? And then being a mom of kids going into that, what am I teaching my children about their future? The first thing, the most important thing that I'm trying to focus on them understanding now is the importance of learning, of loving learning. I know that somewhere in the back of my mind, somewhere in my education, somebody told that to me too. So you've probably heard it as well. Be that lifelong learner. Even if AI can learn quicker, whatever we learn, whatever we can get our kids willing to learn, and then they get to have experience with whatever skill, whatever knowledge package that is, their experience makes them more valuable as a human. If they learn, number 2, to communicate that knowledge, right? That's why you might have known, and you're here on YouTube learning things as well as I do. Humans can do this. Sure, some people can say, well, AI can do it too, but AI cannot have experiences. They can only reflect human experiences. So being human, having experiences is valuable. And that's what I'm trying to convince my kids, to be willing to have experiences and be willing to learn how to communicate it better. And I know it's hard because 3 boys, I mean, they're just like this all the time. That's all they do. So to get them out of their shell, help them learn how to be more confident, be willing to have eye contact, and engage with people. I know that's tough. I know. I feel it too. So if you're a parent going, they don't talk to anyone, I get it. So I keep reminding them. And I even practice with them when they're answering me and they're on their phone. Yes, Mom. I make them stop and remind them, eye contact. I'm a human, right? And so all that learning, communication, experience. Even if I got them to learn, well, let me take that back. The thing that would compel them to want to learn, to want to have information, to want to get experiences, and then to want to engage and communicate, is to somehow, for us parents, if we can seed that idea, to encourage them to be curious about the world, to want them to explore and see what they can see, right? Curious people tend to see opportunities that other people might miss. And I'm going to argue that most people are going to miss these opportunities that are right in front of them. AI, sure, can do a lot of work, but AI can do a lot of work for us too, and help us to be better at what we do. One of the things that AI is helping me do is to be a better communicator, to learn more, to learn faster. And so AI can be that sidekick for them, not their competitor. If they could just see that, they could be curious, how can AI help them? So no matter how advanced technology becomes, people will still need leaders, teachers, problem solvers, and people who know how to build relationships. So there you go. Help your kids. What I'm doing is helping my kids, or trying to help my kids understand to be curious, so that they learn, so that they want to have those experiences, so that they want to have the skills to communicate and then share the experience that they learn. Things won't always go according to plan. That's something else that I try to teach them, because they'll make mistakes and face setbacks. And isn't that different than the school system that we have been learning in the past, where you just have to learn to get these right, regurgitate the right thing and put it on the test, and then you know what they may or may not actually comprehend. So this new idea of encouraging experience, expecting mistakes and setbacks is a norm, but they get to learn faster. They need to develop that ability to recover and adapt. And that may end up being the most valuable skill and expectation, more than any specific degree. I want them to build confidence, not just in what they know, but confidence in who they are. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-acceptance. The belief that if the world changes, they can learn, adjust, and figure things out. That's what I want for them. I don't want them defining themselves by a job title or just what they know, but what they can do with what they know. Because if their identity is tied entirely in what they do, what happens when what they do changes? Maybe you've experienced that too. For me, when that happened to me, when I went from pharmacist to mom, who's no longer a pharmacist, who am I? Because I thought my value came from my profession, my career, my ability to earn money. And we're learning differently now. I had to figure out, no, my value is in being a human and a mom. So their value comes from who they are, not what they do. And as I thought about all this, another idea kept coming up. Ownership. I know that's a little bit different. Because most of us were taught how to work. And working will always matter. So I'm not against teaching them to work hard. As a matter of fact, I insist that my children work hard. But I'm also teaching my children how to own. How to think like owners, how to invest with AI in mind ahead of time, how to accumulate growing assets, how to understand that there are ways to participate in growth besides trading their time for dollars. Because while technology may replace some forms of labor, technology tends to also increase productivity. And throughout history, people who owned productive assets, they've often been the ones that have benefited the most from that increased productivity. So I'm not meaning specifically that everyone needs to become a business owner. And it doesn't mean that everyone needs to become an investor overnight. But I do think ownership deserves a seat at the table when we're talking about preparing our children for the future. And that's something important that I really wish somebody had taught me earlier. And the more that I think about it, the less I believe our children really need a perfect roadmap. None of us had one, right? The future isn't clear. What they need are qualities that remain useful regardless of what happens with AI or not. The ability to learn, to adapt, to communicate, building strong relationships, to have resilience, confidence, and curiosity. And how ownership can change the game of where our value is. Because none of us can predict that future, but we can help our children navigate it. So when people ask me how I'm preparing my kids for an AI future, my answer isn't really a specific major or job or any specific line of work. I'm trying to help them become the kind of person who can thrive in a changing world and connect with other humans while they do it. So, what do you think about this? I'd love to hear from you. If you have children, I would love it if you put in the chat what kinds of conversation you've been having at your house about AI, careers, and your kids' future. And if this video encouraged you, subscribe and join us here at Life in Abundance again, because next week I want to go deeper with this idea of ownership and why I think it may become even more important than ever in this AI-driven world. So I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, keep learning, growing to build a life in abundance.